What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Devy YouTube channel. We are back today with a mock draft. You know what day it is. It's Monday. If you're watching this on release day, and we're going to be doing a Devy mock, but with the 23 class included. So where does Bijan go with Marvin Harrison Jr.? And these are for you guys that are doing drafts out there and kind of want to know value based on like your Devy drafts. And if you're doing a combine, which I know a lot of leagues do this now, like a startup combine rookie Devy draft, you can start seeing where value's at, when you can start targeting and knowing the tiers are at. So we're going to be doing that. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of strategy. So I'm going to dive in at the beginning of the video, talking about how I approach these types of drafts and all the leagues that I'm in that do this. And then we're just going to do player highlights. We're going to go through 5 rounds. So it's pretty deep in terms of like the asset pool and everything that's there. So you know the drill. Hit that like and subscribe button while the intro is going, and I will catch you guys on the other side of it. All right, so let's dive in it. Had to put my boy JJ on there for some type of Devy mock, right? We got to get him in there anyway. But yeah, let's get into it. So first things first, let's talk about strategy, right? So like, how do you attack this? And I've had a lot of guys DM me and ask me for help on this. And so I figured, what the hell, might as well make it a YouTube video. So first things first, when you get into a combined Devy and Dynasty draft, I think one thing we tend to do is we ignore draft capital when we shouldn't, right? So we know Kendre Miller already got day 2 capital. So why are we reaching on guys in college that we hope are Kendre Miller, right? So biggest thing is take draft capital into account. When you're looking at a prospect, if they're a mid-tier running back in college and their draft capital is, you hope it's Kendre Miller, but Miller's still on the board, you just draft Miller, right? So don't reach at some of those positions that we are worried about their draft capital when there's already a player that has the draft capital that's needed. Now, on the inverse, like you're not taking Sean Tucker over like Jace McClellan because, hey, you might like Tucker's landing spot, but undrafted free agents is not like that. And McClellan has that chance to kind of pop off. So there is both ways here, right? So don't overcompensate, like you think you're smarter than draft capital is, right? Make sure that's there. Don't reach on assets. Now I'm going to show you the draft. We're going to go through it, and I'm going to show you where you reach. I will tell you the position most reach on. It's quarterback, and then tight end. Those are the 2 positions that most reach on. And I'm going to be going through there and showing you guys kind of what to do, what not to do, and then understand value. Like, and what that means to me is like understand when you're taking guys, what you're taking them for. So like if you have a 5-star freshman running back that's in the 4th round, you draft him, Justice Haynes, right? Understand that how value changes. Malachi Nelson's a person I keep getting asked about with Malachi, quarterback going to USC. He's with Riley. He's behind Caleb. He's going to sit for a year. That's good. He's going to actually probably have his value stay the same. Or to be honest, with the quarterbacks moving on in this class, next year he's going to actually see a bump in his value probably, and he won't have to play a snap. So if you draft him, guys like that are pretty valuable, right? If you get him in the 4th or 5th round, I love that value for those guys, right? It's the same thing with like Quinn Ewers. I was out on Quinn Ewers last year at his price, which was like 1st round. Now I'm kind of back at his price this year based on what could happen, right? So understand that value change, but also understand circumstances. Understand that quarterbacks that get redshirted tend to hold their value when they're 5-star recruits, right? So you can kind of bank on those guys. Same as running backs a little bit. You'll see a little dip there, but if a running back just has one good game, he pops off. Justice Haynes getting drafted in the 4th round this year. He might be in the 1st round next year, right? All right, so let's go through the first 6 picks. We got Caleb Williams, Drake May, Marvin Harrison Jr., Bijan Robinson, Anthony Richardson, and Bryce Young. So 3 Devy players in a row get drafted ahead of any NFL guys. And I think the biggest thing I probably have a problem with is Drake May. I like May, but at 102 in a combined draft, like Bijan went top 10. When we see running backs go top 10, I understand that quarterback position, but that's the thing with draft capital, right? You hope Drake May gets top 5, top 10 draft capital like Anthony Richardson did. I think Anthony Richardson should have got 102, not Drake May, right? Like that is what we're looking at in terms of like that value and that draft capital piece. Now, the guy I want to do highlight is Anthony Richardson. And the thing I want to talk to you guys about Anthony Richardson is I've seen some people make some trades getting rid of Anthony Richardson for like Drake May and Devy pieces. What are we doing? Anthony Richardson got what we wanted. Top 5 draft capital in an offense that should highlight him well. You're hoping Drake May and these guys get top 10 draft capital. Now, we expect him to, but hey, Devy managers have expected Spencer Rattler, DJU, the list goes on and on. Matt Corral, Malik Willis. Like, there's been that expectation on some guys all the time. Like, hey, of course they're going to top 5, top 10, and then they don't. I'm not saying Drake May's not, but we already know, we already have what we have with Anthony Richardson, right? So I think that's one other I want to highlight. Like, you made that bet with Anthony Richardson. You stuck in there. I have a couple Anthony Richardson shares because I was on him last year. I said he's a value in Devy leagues. He smashed expectations. You write him right now, right? You just take him and you take that top 5 capital and you move him. And if you do move him, you move him for an NFL piece, not a Devy piece. You're moving from an NFL, a legitimate asset that you know is going to score you points. Okay. Now, flip it on to the 7 through 12 mark. CJ, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Brock Bowers, Travion Henderson, and Raheem Sanders. So when you're looking at the running backs going kind of back to back there, Gibbs getting that top 8. And then you really have like the guys, right? Brock Bowers is going a little earlier than I expect and tight end. As a tight end premium, though, I get it in terms of where he's at. I have my reservations about Brock a little bit in terms of where he's getting valued. But again, I like the prospect. Travion and Raheem are going to be battling it out all season. So that's something we're going to note. Yeah, and I'm just going to highlight Brock. That's the big thing with me is like, hey, if he can step up, be in that offense, obviously he's going to produce. But what is that size? Where's that value at, right? And I'm kind of I'm going to draft Brock in the first round train. And this is just based on that tight end position. We saw Luke Musgrave, who I was on, Laporta. All these guys get this draft capital. And even Michael Mayer was the third tight end off the board. And no one would have expected that, right? We all love Brock, and we understand that Brock can be the first tight end. But I don't, with the guys that are there, it's hard for me to take Brock Bowers over Travion Henderson or Raheem Sanders, right? It's hard for me to kind of highlight those pieces. So that's just something to note when we get into it. Now, in the second round here, we got Emeka Egbuka, Jordan Addison, Nicholas Singleton, Quinshawn Judkins, Braylon Allen, and then Drew Aller. I think that's interesting with Emeka and Jordan right back to back, right? We know Jordan Addison got that first round capital. We think Emeka's wide receiver 2 in many rankings out there. I think those are very, very fun pieces to kind of, like, let's say you have Emeka. Do you want to go get Jordan on the Vikings? Maybe that value's there, right? So these mocks are used more for not just mocks, it's value for your Devy leagues. Understand where these guys are getting valued, and maybe you can manipulate the market, right? Now, every market's different. It's a micro market in your leagues, but that is an interesting area. That's why I like doing these mocks. Now, the guy I want to highlight, Drew Aller, he has the most potential to shoot up draft boards. If he hits this year, so if he just looks like a competent quarterback, he's a quarterback, one of the 25 class, he's going top 5 next year in the first round. Lock it in. Drew Aller is going to be that guy, right? So right now, if you can get him in the second round, that's a value, and you hope that he hits. He is that quarterback for me that's in that second round that I'm willing to take a shot on. Now, back half of the second, here we go. Luther Burden, Quentin Johnston. Luther Burden ahead of the Quentin Johnston's a take, man. That takes some cojones, right? Because like we just said, Quentin Johnston that first round. Luther Burden, again, he got outperformed by Dominic Lovett there at Missouri, right? He's got to take that next step. Malik Neighbors, Quinn Ewers, and again, there's that price for Quinn. Last year, top 5. Now he's back into the second. Donovan Edwards, the best pass catching back of his class. Devin Ashane at the 212 mark. Now, the guy I want to talk about, Luther Burden, is a risk right now, right? I think he's getting drafted at almost his ceiling. Again, if he's the wide receiver one, he'll get drafted in the first round next year. But again, with that Luther, you're banking on a lot from Missouri. Now, they got the Fresno State offensive coordinator, who I know. Obviously, I've watched Fresno State a lot as a season ticket holder out here. I like him. Like, I think that is a good. But what's that quarterback situation going to look like, right? How does that work? Well, Jake Garcia going to take that job? Burden's got to step up. Now, his dominator rating was great. Jay Stein was on our Patreon podcast talking about that. And I know that things are pointing up there, but this is, taking him ahead of Quentin Johnston, that draft capital, I think that's a risk, right? That's definitely a risk. Now, let's get into the third round. So let's just kind of take a look at everybody going to the third. And this is a good time to stop the video, hit that like button when you do, but kind of go through, okay, where's the value? Xavier Worthy, Will Levis, Evan Stewart is right there. Malachi Nelson, Zachariah Branch, Zach Charbonnet, Justice Haynes in the third round, Dante Moore, Zay Flowers, Trey Benson, who Christian has him very highly ranked in his top 5, Tank Bigsby, and then Cedric Baxter kind of rounded out that third round. So you see a lot of mix. This is essentially that third round now. About 2 months ago when we did this before, Fourth round was where you saw all the freshman guys go. Now that we kind of know draft capital has shot some guys down the board, now we're seeing the freshmen jump up in that third round. So thinking about like if you're in a draft, you might want to get those early thirds or late seconds if you want to accumulate kind of freshman picks, if you're going after the freshman value. Now, Malachi Nelson's the guy that, like I mentioned when I talked about it, when you're looking at where he went, 304, I have a hard time thinking that his value is going to shift a lot if he doesn't play, right? Everybody's just going to bank on that he can be Caleb Williams, which is a wrong way to look at it. Like, he didn't have a very good spring, but he hadn't thrown very much in the spring. He's coming off a surgery, so he didn't look great. But again, if he doesn't play, he redshirts. He's still going to be tied to Lincoln Riley. I still think he goes around late second, right? Kind of where Quinn was going. And you're going to see that increased value, and people are always going to buy into Devy quarterbacks, so use that to your advantage. Now, in the fourth round, we have Branson Robinson, Jackson Arnold, Barian Brown, Will Shipley, Blake Corum, Kendre Miller, Joshua Downs, Jurian Dickey, Jonte Cook, Troy Franklin, Jatavian Sanders, and Jonathan Mingo. Now, one thing to note is that Jatavian's the second tight end taken here in terms of like Devy assets, right? Okay, from Texas. And so that's just to show you kind of how the Devy position of the tight end position is kind of shot down a little bit, right? People aren't reaching on tight ends anymore. People are getting smarter. Now, the guy that I want to kind of highlight in this one is Troy Franklin. I think Franklin's going to be that kid that just gets tons and tons of targets. I know Gary Bryant Jr. is there, but he just catches now, right? Franklin is just a pure catcher, going to go earn those targets, go grab them, do the type of things that you like to see in that Oregon offense. And again, when you're looking at this in that fourth round, I think he's a value, right? Especially with some of the guys going after Joshua Downs. I think Franklin can be a second and third round pick next year if things fall for him, right? Now, the one area that I want to talk about too is Blake Corum is getting drafted still. And, I had some people come after me on Twitter the other day on social media when I was like, hey, why are we still drafting Blake Corum? For me, like, why are you drafting Blake Corum before Kendre Miller, right? To me, we already know Miller got the draft capital. Corum did not get the when he was going to declare, I think he got word back that he was not going to be a day two guy. Now, if he comes back and he's Kendre Miller, fine. But why are you reaching on Corum right there and not taking Kendre Miller, who we already know got that capital, right? That's what I'm talking about with the strategy of like, hey, don't overthink it. I love Corum. I'm a Michigan fan. There's no way I'm taking Corum over Kendre Miller. I'm just not going to do it. Now, in the fifth round, we have Dalton Kincaid, which is interesting that Dalton Kincaid went after Jatavian Sanders. I would have definitely drafted Dalton Kincaid before Jatavian Sanders. Roshan Johnson, Trevor Etienne, Katron Allen, Mekhi Lemon, Jordan Travis, Matthew Golden, Keon Coleman, who's in the portal right now. That might shoot up depending on where he goes. McMillan, Michael Mayer, Sam Laporta, and Riley Leonard. So we see these tight ends really drop, right? So to me, if I'm not like, why am I drafting Jatavian Sanders if I can get Sam Laporta at the end of the fifth, right? That's kind of how I look at those values. Riley Leonard's an interesting one. He's going to be kind of going up the boards a little bit. Watch Riley Leonard at Duke. I know some people talk as a buzz by him being the QB3 of that class. The guy that I want to point out is Katron Allen. I think Allen's probably getting underdrafted right now. And I know, in our Patreon and our Discord, we have a lot of guys in there talk about Allen. He's one of those guys that could definitely be in that top 5 category when it's said and done. He's got a split time with Nicholas Singleton. But in my opinion, like if he didn't have to, we might be talking about Katron Allen as being that Penn State running back. And that offense is absolutely loaded, right? And so got to kind of watch. If you can get Katron Allen in that fifth round, I think that's a smash draft pick based on value, based on potential upside there. So I appreciate you guys tuning in as always. There's the 5 rounds. Go back, check it. Tell me what you guys think in the comments. Do you like Katron Allen? Who are your sleepers? Who are guys you guys are targeting out there? What kind of value are you seeing? And as always, if you want to kind of join our Patreon, have our combined rankings, we got something fun coming down the pipe that we're creating that should be done in the next couple of weeks for everybody out there to use for their Devy leagues throughout the season, not just now, right? Everybody just gives stuff now and they say, oh, we'll see you next year. No, we're trying to create things that will help you throughout the year, not just now to get your money, right? So check that in the description below. We appreciate you guys. I'll check you guys next time.